Hi guys, back up this side, and in this video I want to talk about fear and really go deep into the understanding of where our fear comes from, the brain science behind the fear, how our brain keeps us in the fear and keeps us trapped. And by the end of the video, I'm going to give you a powerful tool that you can use so that you can start disassociating yourself and break free from the fear that you have. And with that, let's get started. So before I begin, I want you to know, and I think most of you already know, that fear is the biggest enemy of all the creativity, potential and deepest desire that you want to create in your life. Fear paralyzes us to a point where, taking actions become almost impossible, and then we live in a resentful, angry state for most part of their life, just because we fail to overcome this fear. And to give an example of this, before creating this channel, I always wanted to, have my own YouTube channel where I can share the stuff that I'm sharing with you right now. But I always had doubts and fear around it, like, oh no, what if, other will make fun of me? What if I'm not good enough? Like, who am I to speak about the personal development? Who will listen to me? Blah, blah, blah. And what I have noticed is that over time, this desire started getting stronger and stronger. But because I was not taking any actions, I was not creating any videos, I started noticing that I became angrier and frustrated within myself. I became short-tempered with the people who are around me, and all this was happening because I was reflecting my frustration and my anger onto the other people. And this happened because on the one hand, I was fearful to put myself out there, create videos, while on the other hand, I had this deep desire to create my channel, but this fear of being judged and being not good enough was stopping me from taking action. And this is what happened to most of us in our life. So what I want you to do is to look at your life and think about where you are fearful. What scares you? Is it starting your own YouTube channel, starting your own podcast, starting your business, pursuing some artistic endeavor, or starting a new relationship? And what I have realized is that the two biggest fear the most people get into, and this is something that we learn very early in our life. So the two biggest fears are, first of all, the fear of rejection, and the second is fear of not being good enough. And I have discussed these two fears in my last video. I will put the link in the pinned comment in the comment section. You can go there and watch it later, right? So the fear of rejection is that if I put myself out there, people are going to reject me. They are going to judge me and they are going to reject me. And the other fear is that, of not being good enough. You keep doubting yourself, you keep doubting your ability, you keep doubting your potential, right? Now look at your own life. How often do you get into those fear of like, if I say something, people are going to shut me down, they are going to judge me, they are going to negate me, or I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy. So as I said, these are the two biggest fears that most people get into, and these are the fear that quite literally stopping you and your life from flourishing, blossoming and achieving your highest potential. So the mistake that people make when dealing with this fear, so whenever the fear arises, what people do is they start and try to resist the fear, right? They try to push it away and try to fight it, and they try to puff their chest and make power poses and do affirmation, and by doing all of that, the fear keeps perpetuating and become even stronger, because whatever you resist, it persists. So think of it this way: if let's say I am feeling fear, and what I do to resist is like I puff my chest, I say affirmation to myself that I do not have any fear, I am this, I am that. But this is what I'm doing at the conscious level. This is what the conscious mind doing, all these tactics. But because I am doing all of this, it impresses on my subconscious mind that because I'm doing this power pose, these affirmations, it means I am fearful. I hope that makes sense, because a person who is naturally confident, he does not have to do these affirmations, does not have to do these power poses, right? They are just naturally confident. A person who is courageous, who doesn't have to do these affirmations, right? Because he is naturally courageous. And as I'm telling myself under this stressful situation that I am confident, I do not fear anything, it simply means that I am not all of those things. You cannot simply fool the subconscious mind by doing all these gimmicky tactics. So this is the first mistake that we make, is that we try to resist the fear, right? On the other hand, the second mistake that people make is that they personalize the fear. And what I mean by that is, when this fear arises, we start to say that, oh, I am fearful, I am afraid, I am feeling this fear, and we start to personalize the fear. There is no separation between me and the fear. They become the one. I become my fear. I am the fear. I hope that makes sense, right? So if we were to dig down into what is actually happening in our brain when we are fearful, so let's say this is my brain, and we have three predominant parts of the brain. We have the prefrontal cortex, the outermost part of the brain that is responsible for the rational thinking. So this is the thinking part of the brain, the executive part of the brain. The middle part is the limbic area, which controls the emotion and is associated with the feelings such as love and intimacy. So we have this limbic system, which is also known as mammalian part of the brain, which is the emotional brain. And the third part, the innermost part of the brain, is the amygdala area, also called as the reptilian brain, right? The amygdala is responsible for processing strong emotions such as fear, pleasure, and anger. This is the oldest part of the brain and is responsible for 90% of the unconscious decision making. That part of the brain, its job is our survival. It controls the autonomic nervous system, but its job is to keep us alive. And this part of the brain actually works from the fight or flight principle. It controls the fight or flight response, and often unconsciously. And this part of the brain lives by its own rule, and it operates at super fast, lightning fast speed. This is the area where fear arises. So what I want you to know, the takeaway here is that your fear is not conscious. It comes from the unconscious mind. It comes from the reptilian part of the brain, the amygdala, right? Your fear comes from your brain, and I will discuss later in the video how to actually short circuit that process to get through the fear. But understand that our fear that rises is the unconscious mind, and then the conscious mind tries to rationalize it. What I mean by that is, let's say you have to give a job interview. You started feeling fear around it, like fear of facing the interviewer or fear of getting rejected, and all this fear arises in the reptilian part of the brain. Fear is just fear. There is no labeling to it, right? It is just this heaviness in your solar plexus areas. Your palms are sweating, right? The normal fear response. But your conscious mind, your prefrontal cortex, sense these responses, and your conscious mind, your prefrontal cortex, now start to rationalize the fear by saying that this fear is there because I have to face this interview. I have the possibility of getting rejected. That's why I'm feeling this way. I am feeling this fear. But you don't understand. What you don't understand is that your reptilian brain is here just trying to protect you. That's it. It's the standard fight or flight response. Now, talking about the fight or flight fear, meaning we perceive that something is a threat to us or something is dangerous, something is going to threaten our survival. But the other version of this fear that a lot of people get into, which is no longer necessary or relevant anymore, is the social fear. Fear of, are people going to judge me? Are they going to reject me? Am I good enough? Now, what we need to understand is that we do not live in a fight or flight world anymore. Many years ago when we were evolving, fight or flight was necessary because we had to know whether or not, if I were to leave this cave and go hunt for the food in the jungle, am I going to be eaten by a tiger or a snake can bite us to the death, right? So that would create obviously the fear and engage the fight or flight response. But we don't live in that world anymore. But our brain have not caught up and evolved enough for the actual world that we live in. And the world that we live in is actually not being served by the older part of the brain that gets set into the flight or fight. So as I said, the fight or flight part of the brain is that when we see things that threaten our survival, like a snake, something that sends us into fear of survival. And then the other is social fear of being judged, which is obviously the social fear. What I want you to get here is that there is nothing conscious about the fear. Fear is not conscious. It arises at the unconscious part of the brain. No one ever says like, this is Sunday morning and I am getting bored, so why not let's get into a little bit of fear. No, it doesn't happen that way, because it comes from the brain and it comes unconsciously. So please understand, I know I am being a little repetitive here, but please understand that there is nothing conscious about the fear that you get into. It is just your brain. It is your brain actually trying to protect you, right? So let's talk about a process, a simple process to make it easy for you to move through your fears, once they come up. Because again, they come up completely unconsciously and are brain based. And I want to show you a way to disassociate from the fear and move through this. So step number 1 is to accept and acknowledge that you are experiencing fear. Now, why it is important is because whenever we experience fear, we try to resist it. We try to fight with it. And this is not the effective way of dealing with it, because when you resist the fear, you give it your attention. And wherever you place your attention, it expands. So the best way is to accept that you are experiencing fear and acknowledge it. By doing that, you are no more fighting with it. So how you can acknowledge fear? You can simply say, you know what? Right now I am feeling fear. I am experiencing fear. I am feeling a bit afraid. That's it. This is how you acknowledge and accept the fear. Step number 2 is to shift your awareness. And what I mean by that is now you start to disassociating yourself from the fear. Now you can create this separation and distance from yourself and from the fear. And to do so, what you can simply say is that, you know what? This is not me. Or you can say that this fear, it's not me. It's my reptilian brain trying to protect me. That's all you need to do. Because by saying that, you are shifting out of your brain, you are shifting out of the reptilian part of the brain, which is being in the driving seat, trying to keep us in fear, trying to protect you, right? Now you are using the prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of the brain, and you are shifting your awareness and shifting your attention. So when you say like, wait, this is not me. So obviously when you go into the fear, you are going to acknowledge it and accept it. Then you are going to work your way through it by saying that this is not me. It's my brain. And when you say it's not me, you are no longer personalizing the fear. You are disassociating when you say this is not me. This is my reptilian brain trying to protect me. And at this moment, you have now distanced and disassociated yourself from that automatic brain-based fear response. You can also say a version of this, use whatever emotionally works for you. Because I am saying this and you are hearing this analytically, but create or use whatever works for you emotionally. You can also say that, like, wait, this is not me. It's my past defense mechanism trying to protect me. And what I am going to do is I am going to disassociate my fear from that. Or I am not that. The main point here is that you are literally like taking a hatchet and cutting through a rope, and you are disassociating the fear from you. Because most people, as I said, they personalize the fear, right? And step number 3 is to redirect your attention. And what I mean by that is shift your attention from fear to something else. So, before all your attention was simply focused on the fear, and you are where your attention is. Now move your attention to something else, something more meaningful, something more empowering. Now let me explain the principle behind redirecting your attention. This is the concept known as dual task interference, and what that means is that you cannot simultaneously hold two thoughts in your mind at the same time. So to give an example of that, let's say I am thinking about what people think of me if I put a video on YouTube. Rather than focusing on that and letting my attention be consumed by this thought, I move my attention to what value I can give to the other people in my videos. You see what I mean? And because our mind cannot hold two thoughts simultaneously, when I shift my attention to this question, my attention flows into this new, more meaningful direction. And you can do this by asking the right set of questions. And I have made a video on that, how the quality of questions helps you to create a better outcome. I will put the link of the video in the pinned comment for you to watch later. So when you acknowledge the fear and then you shift the awareness to it's not me, and then you move your attention, you are no longer in the fear that you were in the first place. And when you continue to go through this process and do this over and over again, what your reptilian brain learns is that what I am perceiving as a fearful situation is actually not something to be feared of. And this way you rewire it to stop putting you in the fear anymore. Because what your reptilian brain realizes is that every time it put you into the fear, you pull yourself out of it. So it simply ceases to put you in the fear anymore, which means you are reconditioning the brain. So let me recap here very quickly. Step number 1, accept and acknowledge the fear. You can say that, I am experiencing fear right now, I am afraid. Number 2 is to shift your awareness. Realize that this is not me, it's my reptilian brain trying to protect me, and I am going to disassociate from the fear. And the step number 3 is to redirect your attention and move your attention to something else by asking some empowering, uplifting and productive questions. And when you do that, when you do this simple process, it will help you to get out of the fear very, very quickly. And with that, I'm concluding this video. Leave me a comment down below to let me know if that was useful, or if you have anything to ask, I will be more than happy to answer them. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Until next time, much love and peace.